Welcome to The Explainer. We usually tend to think of sleep as just this passive state, right? A period where we simply power down, close our eyes, and do absolutely nothing. But what if I told you sleep is actually a highly active, totally temperature-dependent biological machine? Today, we're not just throwing around basic tips on how to get a better night's rest, we are actively decoding the hidden operating system that governs human life. It might sound a little bit like science fiction, but what if the absolute master key to your human metabolism, your emotional resilience, and your biological aging is quite literally hidden right now in your bedroom thermostat? We're moving way past simple sleep hacks today. We're going on a deep dive to uncover the invisible biological forces that shape your energy, your recovery, and ultimately your longevity. Because every symptom you feel during the day, it's a clue. And every biological process happening at night is a mystery just waiting to be decoded.
Let's start with part 1, the hidden biological thermostat, where we decode the circadian clock and temperature.
Okay, so deep inside your brain's hypothalamus, there's this incredible master pacemaker called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or the SCN. This tiny little region has a monumentally huge job. It perfectly aligns your metabolic and vasomotor activity with the actual light and dark cycles of the Earth. It literally drives a daily biological fluctuation in your core body temperature. During the day, your core stays nice and warm to keep you alert, but as night approaches, this master clock dictates that your core temperature absolutely must drop and drop fast. This cooling down isn't just a byproduct of falling asleep, it is the physical trigger required to actually initiate and stabilize your sleep.
Now, we've all heard of melatonin, right? Most of us just think of it as the sleep hormone. But in reality, melatonin acts more like a critical biochemical transducer. When it surges in response to darkness, it acts as a messenger that directly commands your cardiovascular system to start that core cooling process. It is an incredibly precise chain reaction. Your biological clock senses the dark, melatonin surges, and your body's internal thermostat begins to turn the dial way down. Moving right along to part 2, the core cooling cascade and the deeply paradoxical biology of falling asleep. This is where we hit a massive biological paradox. To cool down your core, your extremities actually have to heat up. That's right, your core body temperature must drop, but your distal skin temperature, meaning your hands and feet, absolutely must rise. Basically, your body has to move all that heat from your deep internal organs out to your skin so it can be dumped into the surrounding environment. If your hands and feet are freezing cold, your core just cannot offload that heat, and your brain will flat out refuse to initiate deep sleep. So this sets off a really fascinating chain of events. Step 1. Skin vasodilation occurs, meaning your blood vessels open wide to dump that internal heat. Step 2. Because of that heat dump, your core temperature successfully drops. But here's the deeper mechanism beneath it all. Step 3. This drop in temperature directly activates your parasympathetic nervous system. That's your deep rest and digest mode. And finally, step 4. As a direct result of that parasympathetic activation, your heart rate variability, or HRV, spikes. Your heart rate slows. Your entire nervous system achieves this profound state of emotional and physical recovery. You see, sleep biology is entirely interconnected. But here's the hidden consequence that most people completely miss. If your room is too warm, this entire beautiful biological cascade just completely fails. An elevated room temperature acts like a physical brick wall, blocking that peripheral heat loss. Because your core can't cool down, your parasympathetic nervous system never fully takes the wheel. So your body remains stuck in a state of high alert, sympathetic stress. You end up tossing and turning with elevated heart rates and lower HRV all night long. You might technically be unconscious, but biologically speaking, you are not recovering. Which brings us to part 3, the REM sleep vulnerability. This is what happens when the body literally abandons its thermostat. So during rapid eye movement sleep, that's the stage that is absolutely crucial for memory consolidation, emotional processing, and overall brain health. Your body initiates something called REM sleep thermoregulatory suspension. It basically paralyzes your muscles to keep you from acting out your crazy dreams, which is great. But it also does something, frankly, a little terrifying. It nearly stops regulating your temperature altogether. You practically lose the ability to effectively sweat or shiver. Your internal thermostat is just suspended. Because your body abandons its thermostat during REM, you become incredibly vulnerable to whatever the environment in your room is doing. If your bedroom's too hot, your body temperature is going to start rising dangerously. And since you can't sweat efficiently to cool off, your brain is suddenly forced to make a split-second choice between brain recovery and basic survival. Guess what?
it will always choose survival. It literally overrides your sleep, ripping you violently out of your most restorative REM cycles, causing these little micro-awakenings just so you can cool down. You know when you wake up sweating at 3 a.m.? That wasn't just a random nuisance. That was your brain executing an emergency survival protocol, literally sacrificing your cognitive recovery just to keep you from overheating.
The crazy thing is, evolutionarily, we are so much better equipped to handle a drop in temperature while we're sleeping, mainly because we can use bedding or clothing. As the research notes, heat exposure affects slow-wave sleep and REM sleep, whereas moderate cold exposure does not. Heat exposure just fundamentally fragments our entire sleep architecture.
Let's move into part 4, the metabolic plasticity switch, and look at how cold exposure actually alters human fat.
Okay, unlike your standard white fat, which acts as pretty much just passive storage, brown adipose tissue, or BAT, is an entirely different beast. It is a highly active metabolic engine. Brown fat literally sucks glucose and lipids right out of your bloodstream to generate heat through this fascinating cellular process called mitochondrial uncoupling. It doesn't store energy, it burns it up. To actually see this engine in action, we just have to look at this incredible landmark clinical crossover study from the National Institutes of Health. Researchers took healthy, lean men and tracked them over 4 months, and they changed absolutely nothing but the temperature of the room they slept in. Month 1 was a neutral 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Month 2 dropped to a mild cold of 66 degrees. Month 3 returned to that neutral 75, and month 4 went up to a warm 81 degrees. Everything else, their diets, their daily activities, stayed exactly the same.
The results? Absolutely jaw-dropping. 42%. After just one single month of sleeping at 66 degrees, these men experience a massive 42% increase in their brown fat volume. Their bodies fundamentally remodeled their cellular makeup just from sleeping in a cooler room.
And it wasn't just volume. At 66 degrees in month 2, their overall fat metabolic activity rose by 10%. Their bodies became so much more effective at clearing glucose from the blood, drastically improving their insulin sensitivity. But look at month 4. When the bedroom was dialed up to a warm 81 degrees, all of those incredible metabolic enhancements completely reversed. The brown fat just vanished. This is undeniable proof that our metabolic health is incredibly plastic. It reacts dynamically to the thermal environment we subject ourselves to for 8 hours every single night.
Finally, let's wrap up with Part 5, your Thermal Operating Manual, where we figure out how to calibrate your sleep microclimate.
So what's the magic number? Well, the science strongly points to a very specific optimal ambient thermal window for sleep, and that is between 60 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Dropping your room temperature into this zone removes the thermal stress from your environment entirely and allows your body to naturally offload heat and sink into the deepest, most restorative stages of rest.
When you maintain this cool window, the interconnected benefits are just massive. It modulates your insulin sensitivity and expands that metabolically active brown adipose tissue. It completely stabilizes your fragile REM and slow-wave sleep cycles, stopping your brain from ever having to execute that thermal survival override we talked about. It shifts your nervous system deep into parasympathetic recovery, significantly enhancing your heart rate variability, and it just effortlessly supports your body's natural circadian cooling rhythm. But look, we aren't biological clones. There is a lot of inter-individual variability at play here. Your age, your sex, your endocrine status, all of these mean that your personal perfect degree might be slightly different than someone else's. A 68-degree room might feel absolute perfection to a 25-year-old, but a bit too chilly for someone who is 75. The real goal here is to experiment within that cool window. You want to use breathable bedding layers to trap a gentle, comfortable warmth right next to your skin, your microclimate, while making sure the ambient room air stays cool enough for you to breathe easily, and for your core to successfully dump its heat.
The hidden operating system of human life really isn't so hidden once you actually know how to decode it, because every single system is connected. Your sleep influences your hormones influence your emotions, and your biology dictates the entire trajectory of how well you age. So, tonight, when you reach for your thermostat, are you going to see it as just adjusting the air in the room, or will you realize you are quite literally dialing in your metabolic age, your brain health, and your longevity? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating science with me today. Stay curious and sleep well.